quick and fun automotive tech tips that you should know when technicians are trying to diagnose lost communication and implausible codes that are set in modules. A lot of times they will typically ignore these communication type codes and go for the codes that they feel relates better to their drivability problem, and that now becomes their diagnostic focus. So let's talk a bit about how to diagnose lost communication and implausible codes. The first thing to understand is just how important lost communication codes have become and why they're triggered in the first place. Typically, a lost communication code means that there's an issue with communication between two or more modules within a vehicle. These modules rely on a network known as the controller area network to communicate with one another, and if this communication is lost, it can cause a whole host of problems. It's impossible to overstate the significance of a lost communication code when it comes to diagnosing issues with a vehicle. The reason for this is that the combust network is a critical component of modern vehicle operation, and any interruption in communication between modules can result in a wide range of symptoms. Therefore, ignoring these codes could potentially lead to a misdiagnosis of the real underlying issue. Using a repair support database like Mitchell, ALLDATA, or Identifix can be incredibly helpful when it comes to effectively diagnosing and addressing loss of communication and implausible codes. One of the key tools used in this process is the diagnostic flowchart, which lays out the appropriate diagnostic steps to quickly determine the cause of the issue. In most cases, following the diagnostic flowchart can help you pinpoint the cause of the problem with relative ease. By systematically working through each step of the process, you'll be able to identify any discrepancies or issues and address them appropriately. So let's take a closer look at these steps now. The first step in addressing loss of communication and implausible codes is to identify the affected modules. This means determining which electronic control units are impacted by the codes and documenting each code from each module. By doing so, you'll have a starting point for understanding which codes are present in which modules and which module you should be focusing on and how they might be impacting one another. It's always important to diagnose lost communication codes first when you're dealing with a vehicle issue. If a code won't clear out, it's essential to focus towards the lost communication codes first before turning to any other codes. To start the diagnostic process, I recommend checking for powers and grounds to each module that you're unable to communicate with. With the scanner connected, you can wiggle the harnesses and see if the connection comes back when you wiggle the wires. By doing so, you may be able to identify any issues with the wiring or connections that could be causing the lost communication code. Once you've ruled out issues with the wiring or connections, you can move on to diagnosing other codes that may be present. By following this process and carefully working through each step of the diagnostic flow chart, you'll be able to pinpoint the root cause of the issue and address it effectively. In vehicle diagnosis, an implausible code is a code that simply doesn't make sense based on the other information that the vehicle's computer is receiving. For example, if one sensor is reporting that the engine is running fast, but another sensor is saying that the car isn't moving, this would be considered an implausible code. This type of code can be caused by a number of things, such as issues with the vehicle's sensors, wiring, or computer system. If you encounter an implausible code, it's important to investigate the transmit and ECU for any missing data or irrational signal values over the combust network. Sometime a scope would be needed to complete this task, but start utilizing a diagnostic scanner to retrieve and compare the actual sensor values on the scanner screen being transmitted over the network to the expected values. If you identify any discrepancies, you'll want to address them right away. Sensor information and other calculated data that is processed by an electronic control module can be transmitted over the controller area network. Some ECU require information from other ECU to check the validity of the information relative to that system. In some cases, that information is used in the calculations relative to that ECU. If the transmitting ECU knows that the data is not valid, it will transmit a message indicating that the information is not valid or not available. Often, this message is known as a signal not available message. One key aspect of diagnosing communication failures is to verify that the electronic control units are programmed with accurate information that's specific to the vehicle, such as the correct VIN and mileage. This is especially important when installing a used ECU from another vehicle. It's crucial to confirm the programming of all modules, making sure they are the same by checking for any incorrect VIN or security misconfiguration that could be causing a communication failures. Once the issues have been identified, it's important to take appropriate steps to address them. Depending on the specific problem, this may involve repairing wiring, replacing modules, or reprogramming ECU with correct vehicle information. In some cases, reprogramming an ECU with correct vehicle information, such as the correct VIN and mileage, can often resolve these type of communication issues. As always, I hope you found this helpful, and if you like this technical video bulletin and would like to see more, please let me know. I'm Tim Roddifer, and I'll catch you on the next one.